Okay, I've got a man here that I want to read you a little bit about what Michael Signer wrote in Demagogue about him. And I have a question after I get finished. And I'd love to discuss it with anybody and hear your opinion on it. And I'll tell you what I think. Huey Long was a quintessential demagogue, fulfilling all four rules perfectly. First, he fashioned himself as a man of the common people. Second, he triggered tremendous emotional responses from them. Third, he used these responses for political power as governor, U.S. Senator, and erstwhile presidential candidate. And finally, and most importantly, Huey Long, by his very nature, tested boundaries and broke rules. The Kingfish, his preferred nickname, was what the founding fathers feared most: a national level demagogue, comfortable with testing, manipulating, and even breaking laws, who had a hammerlock on the passions of the masses and ambitions to rule the country. According to his chief biographer, Long made a habit of incredible actions, finding lines and crossing them. If he disliked existing rules, he was quite ready to make up his own. There are qualities that make an ordinary person the opposite of endearing, but in a politician they are called genius. These patterns led Long to establish a tyranny in Louisiana, a one-man rule where Long routinely threatened his political opponents and ran bills through the legislature. He even controlled the state government while in the U.S. Senate. He was not above using the implements of state-controlled violence in service of his political aims. In one of many examples, Long launched a series of raids on gambling houses in 1928 using the National Guard. The actions clearly fell under the jurisdiction of the courts and the police, but contrary to established procedure and law, Long didn't secure warrants through a judge. Instead, relying on a state militia under his sole command, he instructed the Adjutant General of the National Guard to send hundreds of men on raids. As a U.S. Senator, Long continued to exercise an iron grip on affairs back home in Louisiana. His hand-picked successor, Governor O.K. Allen, on Long's instruction, once imposed partial martial law and a disputed grand jury investigation of voting fraud. Malicious soldiers watched over the jury room as votes were counted. Another time, at Long's direction, Allen imposed martial law in Baton Rouge because Long said there was a plot by Standard Oil to assassinate him. More than 800 troops massed in the state capitol grounds. He was so subservient to Long's demands that the Long's brother, Earl Long, once said, "A leaf once blew in the window of Allen's office and fell on his desk. Allen signed it." This was the destructive demagogue. The historian Arthur M. Schlesinger, Jr. wrote that Long was not a nice man and that he exhibited flippant brutality. The yes men and the hoodlums who clustered around him was bound to him by fear or by greed, not by affection. Long was a man propelled by a greed for power and a delight in its careless exercise. Julius Long said of his estranged brother, the only sincerity there was in him was for himself, and there has never been such an administration of ego and pomposity since the days of Nero. As for his political method, it consisted of the comic impudence, the gay egotism, the bravado, the mean hatred and fear. Contemporaneous news stories featured equally believable descriptions of friendliness and meanness. beneficence and anger, Republican sentiment and ruthless self-promotion. Long combined aspects of the destructive and beneficial demagogue in a single titanic political character. For instance, an article in the Saturday Evening Post titled Paradox in Pajamas, published in October 1935, a month after Long's death, found profound contradictions in Long. The writer noted Long's contradictory identities, that the young zealot of Long's youth wasn't the senator, that the senator wasn't the Long, who addressed political at rallies at Greek Creek Forks, that this Long wasn't the one who stood buck naked while he laid down the law to a group of political fugglemen in a hotel suit. Posthumously, the article recounted the contrast between Long's focus on people and conversation, as though seeking to hypnotize a subject, and his tendency to fly into violent and momentarily quite ungovernable rages without so much as an instant's notice. The grand sum of all these contradictions was, for the author, Long's alternating savagery and kindness to the erratic driver of his limousine during a rough ride. After coaching the nervous driver after a swerve by crooning, "Take it easy, son, just take it easy," Long exploded, "Get the hell out of this car before I kill you like you tried to kill me." A New York Times Magazine story reported that Huey Long thinks that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde is the greatest book ever written. He said so in his senatorial office with a grin of impish satisfaction. One thought of Huey Long swashbuckling in Louisiana, and the same man talking amusingly and rather persuasively in Washington, and one could understand his liking for the theory of a dual personality. It permits him to do many contradictory and extraordinary things. And now, this is my question. Is this the apostle that the Republicans consider their example, and that they are walking in his footsteps behind him? I would love to hear from anybody who has read this book or who does read it. Come back anytime. And I gotta say, this guy, Michael Signer, he is so good. I mean, he's so educated and understanding of it all. I'm delighted to find the truth in the book. So I'd love to hear from you, and thanks for listening. Have a great evening. Bye.